And the blue guy is not named Poppy. Let me start there, for all you uncultured masses. Hello, my name is Haley Whipjack, and welcome to me presenting Poppy Playtime lore like I understand it. I'll grab the whiteboard in a second and we'll be off. Background knowledge first, what is Poppy Playtime? And did you know it's not Poppy's Playtime? I was saying it wrong for years. Poppy Playtime is a video game series. There are 4 primary games that have been released, with a 5th and final game due to arrive early next year, as well as some side games and ARGs to buff the lore up a little bit. The first game came out in 2021 and was rather short and small in scope, and the most recent and largest in scale came out just a couple months ago in January of 2025. Poppy Playtime is about a toy factory, a toy company called Playtime, and the terrible secrets hidden within. It's, very Five Nights at Freddy. It's horror games made for kids to fixate on. It's spooky media meant for babies to obsess over and draw the characters and tell their parents all the lore in long, rambling sentences on road trips. Which is, I guess, what I'm doing here today. Today I'm the 6-year-old and you're the beleaguered parent driving me to summer camp. Or you're here because you want to impress your local 6-year-olds. Or you're here because I'm making a video about a silly thing, and that's enough for you. Appreciate that, by the way. And if you want to support me and my 6-year-old ways, you can find me on my Patreon. Over there, you can find sneak peeks to in-progress videos. We have 2 Reginas now. And you're going to tell me that neither of them are going to pull a move on that blonde woman? But you just couldn't help yourself. Could you? And you can also find extra videos every month. Hey, it's the outfit that made me watch this movie when I was 13 or whatever. The perfect outfit. We've got a fully blue mohawk, a black t-shirt that says surf naked. Now, unlike my Five Nights at Freddy's explainer lore video, I am not working off of years of cultural osmosis knowledge plus exactly 1 hour of detailed lore exploration. I am instead working off a lot more watching people play the games in a very short period of time. I've been really into watching it the last couple weeks, I'm so sorry, and then a deep wiki dive, and also looking at theories on the Reddit, but I don't recommend looking at theories on the Reddit. It makes you think that everybody else who cares about this is 11 years old, and then you start to feel bad? Any hoozles. So I will probably still get things wrong. This is for me to teach people who know less. Or, if you do know more than I do, this is for you to correct me in the comments and have a good day. Maybe you know all the stuff, you just want to hear the ways that my brain forms sentences about it. I can't control how that happens, and neither can you. Anyway, who's ready for playtime? I hope it's you! We begin our tale in the year 1930 with one man. His name is Elliot Ludwig, and he founds a company. And that company is called Playtime Co. Are you okay? He's fine. Elliot Ludwig founded Playtime Co. in 1930, right after or right before getting divorced from his wife, Molly Ludwig, presumably. Okay, so there's a lot of things in this story that make me sort of take a step back and go, no, I don't think so. I don't think that would or did happen, even in the universe that they've got me in here. But, a divorce in 1930? Do you know how hard it was to get divorced in 1930? What did he do? What did he do? They didn't have no-fault divorce in 1930. He did something, but we'll never know what it was, I guess. They did also have a daughter. We don't know her name, so for our purposes, she is henceforth Baby Ludwig. Basically, this entire story, this entire saga that I'm about to recount to you only happens because Elliot Ludwig is the most divorced man there has ever been. The most workaholic, weird, unhinged girl dad fail boss. Everything that happens because Elliot Ludwig has the world's weirdest ideas and no one around to tell him no. If he didn't do whatever horrific thing ended his marriage, maybe none of this would have gone down how it does. But all right. He founds Playtime Co. It has a massive factory located somewhere in the American Midwest, probably Illinois, but not like the cool parts of Illinois. And other people work there as well, of course. Just an Elliot Ludwig does not a successful company make. There are people such as the head of innovation, Laith Pierre, and the head of research, Eddie Ritterman. So what is Playtime Co. actually? It's a toy company. They make things for playtime. They also make extendo hand backpacks. Okay, so there are these backpacks with hands attached to them on the sides with arms, okay, that go long and extendo, and you can shoot them out and grab things from across long distances. And the different colored hands have different purposes. Like the green hands can hold and transfer electric charges, which is important because if you are employed at Playtime Co., in order to traverse the factory, you need to be constantly solving and resetting logic puzzles that involve rerouting electricity and flying about the space with your grappling hook hands. We do things a little differently here at Playtime Co. We're not your dad's toy factory. I'm sorry, the actual gameplay of this video game series is crazy to me in universe. You're walking through a factory. Why is it the physical version of riddles just to go from one end to the other? This was a workplace. Playtime Co. is also trying to be on the cutting edge of innovation and science, which I guess is where you get the extendo hand backpack. They're called grab packs, but that's boring. They're the extendo hand backpacks to me. And to be on this cutting edge of innovation and science, Elliot Ludwig starts a program called the Young Geniuses Program, where they recruit young geniuses to do some kind of science. One of these young geniuses is named Harley Sawyer. And Harley Sawyer is so genius that he's also incredibly cynical and antisocial. Not just like doesn't like being around people, but like the opposite of pro-social. Actively exhibiting antisocial behaviors. He's too proud. He's too into the idea of experimentation just for the sake of seeing what happens and not for any actual active progress. His vibes are bad. They're so bad that Elliot Ludwig kicks Harley Sawyer out of the Young Geniuses program. We're leaving him here on the board. I want you to remember that he's been scorned by this man and his company. That'll come up later. Playtime Co. also makes an in-house orphanage. We're gonna save that one for a second. We'll come back to it. Mostly, they make toys. So let's talk about the toys they made. Yes, this is relevant. Stay with me. Their first big hit was a doll called Poppy Playtime. Just like the name of the video game. Poppy Playtime was a little doll that looks just like a little girl. She was made to talk. With real little girls, she can respond to you and have conversation, and you can brush her hair. There's Boxy Boo, who's like a Jack-in-the-Box. Kind of. He's got arms and legs, and the box opens up in his mouth. His name's Boxy Boo. Pianosaurus. Pianosaurus. Some of them have jingles. Yeah, the in-universe commercials worked on me. I'm sorry. I love Pianosaurus. He's a dinosaur with a piano for a mouth. Yarnaby. Yarnaby also has a jingle, and I also love Yarnaby. He's like a little lion with yarn for a mane. He's so cute. He's so cute! Huggy Wuggy! He's a fuzzy blue friend with real long arms for maximum hugs. He's gonna hug you till you pop. Huggy Wuggy ends up the fan favorite, the mascot. He's the one that the first graders I taught a few years ago were absolutely obsessed with. They would kill and die for this blue guy. Huggy Wuggy is the mascot of both the series Poppy Playtime and also the in-universe company Playtime Co., which it's a little mean to the doll Poppy Playtime, quite frankly, whose name is literally in both. They just sort of kicked her to the curb as soon as everybody really liked this new giant blue man. And isn't that just being a woman in corporate America? Kissy Missy. With the success of Huggy Wuggy, they made a version for girls. And you know she's for girls because she's pink. And she has eyelashes, which boys don't have. I'm not like mad about Kissy Missy, by the way. That's very accurate to real life toy marketing. I think it's very funny. Why are boys never allowed to have eyelashes? Brawn. He's a dinosaur. Mommy Longlegs. She's got extendo limbs, just like the backpacks at the factory. She's also pink and marketed towards girls. It's a really spooky name, though, for a toy marketed as a cutesy friend for little girls. Her design rules. I think it's so cool, but we could have done a little more R&D on the name. Playtime Co. Little girls don't traditionally love big spiders. Doughy the Dough Man. He's a man made out of dough. Like Play-Doh. He's a squishy friend. Bunzo Bunny. He's a yellow bunny with a party hat. PJ Pugapillar. He has the face of a pug and the body of a caterpillar. He is the scariest thing Playtime Co. ever created. I do not like PJ Pugapillar. There's also the Smiling Critters. There's a whole line of toys called the Smiling Critters, all of which have huge, black, gaping, toothless smiles and big, dark, empty eyes. I'm only putting Catnap and Dog Day on the board because, quite frankly, Bubba Bubbaphant and Hoppy Hopscotch do not mean anything to me. I'm very sorry. These are our representatives for the Smiling Critters. While we're talking Smiling Critters, let's talk about the incident that occurred with them. The Smiling Critters were a tie-in toy line with a cartoon that Playtime Co. was producing, right? Think Transformers or My Little Pony, that kind of vibe. And the cartoon was super cute. It was really great. Everybody loved it. All of the Smiling Critters were so fun, except for Catnap, who was really spooky. Catnap never spoke in the show. He was just a silent presence, and his character's thing was that he could help his friends fall asleep, which he did by releasing thick red smoke from his dark, gaping maw, making his friends all so happy and giggly and sleepy, and they'd all fall asleep, and then Catnap just sat there awake amidst his friends' prone forms. Parents didn't love that. That's very weird. The Catnap toys that Playtime Co. was producing were supposed to go out with lavender essential oils in them to be calming for children, but they started accidentally going out with the red smoke in them. Because yes, Playtime Co. was manufacturing the smoke. We'll get there later. And the smoke gave the youth of America horrific nightmares and was generally a really bad time. So all Catnap toys got recalled and the show got canceled. But that's probably the only controversial thing that ever happened to Playtime Co., so don't worry about it. What a fun lineup of products! This is not every toy that they made, okay? That would be a way longer list. That'd be a lot more boring to go through. This is every toy that's either plot relevant or that I particularly love. So if there's one that you particularly love that's not on there, I'm sorry. In the 1960s-ish somewhere, Elliot Ludwig's daughter, baby Ludwig, tragically dies. We're not sure how it happened, how accidental it was. All we know is that it did happen, and it was, in fact, a tragedy. Around this time, Playtime Co. starts getting up to some really weird shit behind the scenes. They're experimenting with poppy flowers, the same flowers that make opium, and also dead animals, trying to find the secret to bringing something back to life. And bring something back to life, they do. Elliot Ludwig's daughter is reborn, but not as a human child. No, she's in the body of a Poppy Playtime doll. Talking, thinking, feeling, everything, just as a 1.5 foot tall little doll. And the innovation and research teams spent a long time trying to figure out exactly how she works. Violently. I don't know how old this child was when this happened. Presumably like 30, right? Because if Elliot Ludwig got divorced in or around 1930, and then this happens in the 1960s, I assume the child happened during the marriage. She's like 30 minimum, yeah? Or I have my timeline completely wrong. And, you know, maybe that's the last weird thing that Playtime Co. ever does. Hey, did I say they opened their own in-house orphanage earlier? I sure did. It's called Playcare. Playcare is fully underground, and I don't mean it's not mainstream. I mean it's under the ground. It's an underground dome with a sky painted on the ceiling because the children can't see the real sky because they're beneath the crust of the earth. And Ludwig is like encouraging his employees to adopt an orphan. They got a school down there. There's a dorm building called Home Sweet Home. Anything a growing orphan may need. The head of Playcare is a woman named Stella Graber, who I personally think has to be a terrible person. They present her as mostly okay. I think probably she sucks. The mascot of the schools down in Playcare is Miss Delight. I don't understand really the lore of Miss Delight at this point. We're going to come back to the concept of Miss Delight in a little bit. My understanding is she was kind of just like the little mascot at the start. There's a lot of holes in this lore, okay? The timeline is weird. You are going to have a lot of questions that I don't have answers for. Another feature of Playcare is called the Game Station. And the Game Station has games that the orphan children can play. There are games such as Musical Memory. It's like a Simon Says thing. They get a pattern. They have to repeat it back. There is Whack-a-Wuggy, which is whack-a-mole, but instead of moles, it's the little tiny Huggy Wuggies. And there's also a sort of a red light, green light situation. It's super fun, and there's nothing weird or ominous about the Game Station. Outside of the factory itself, Elliot Ludwig becomes increasingly erratic. He's entering and exiting his home at odd hours. He stops communicating with his neighbors, and he dies. How? We don't know. But after his death, his legacy is ruined because in the investigation, the police find the eviscerated body of a child in his basement. How did that get there, and who was it? I don't know. Not great that it was there, though. For the reputation? So Elliot Ludwig is obviously not running Playtime Co. anymore on account of how he is dead. So now that goes to Leith Pierre. Leith Pierre is in charge of the company, and he brings in Harley Sawyer, previously scorned young genius, now a full-grown adult with a lot of problems. Now, Harley Sawyer never would have been brought into the company while Elliot Ludwig was around because Elliot Ludwig, for good reasons, did not trust or enjoy the company of Harley Sawyer. And good instinct on Mr. Ludwig because Dr. Sawyer comes in with an idea. He goes to the board of Playtime Co. and he says, "Good people, I understand that you're having some problems at this company. I understand that we are, at any moment, we're a minute away from a lawsuit that would bring down everything. Our profit margins aren't good. We're getting like OSHA violations left and right. Our big issues here seem to be human staff. You got to take care of them. You got to make sure they're safe. You got to give them breaks. What if we didn't have human staff? We had something else. Enter the Bigger Bodies Initiative. Now, the Bigger Bodies Initiative is a wild thing to submit to a board of professionals. Even if it's a toy company they're running, you can't just come in and say, what if we replace the human staff with giant versions of the toys we've created for decades? Thoughts? But Harley Sawyer does come in with a proof of concept. Experiment 1006, the prototype. The prototype. Now, we don't know who it was that became the prototype. It could be anybody. But he was the very first success that Harley Sawyer had, other than Poppy, who I guess doesn't count. The prototype wasn't really even a part of the Bigger Bodies initiative. Like I said, he was sort of just the proof of concept for it, but he is wicked smart, very cold and calculating. His actual appearance still has not been seen in game. All that we've seen of the prototype is a really spindly, spooky robot hand and a few spidery robot legs. How is this bitch the prototype? She's clearly the prototype. After the success of the prototype, we officially move forward with the Bigger Bodies initiative using orphans for this process. Specifically, the orphans who do well at the games in the game station, proving their reflex time and their strength and their intellect. They're just knocking children out with the red smoke. You remember the red smoke they were manufacturing from the catnap debacle? And then they carry the children off into the night and change them into something they can use. This process does leave them semi-organic. When they become this experiment, they do still need to eat. They still bleed. They have the exterior of the fur or the dough or the plastic of a toy, but they still have organs. So presumably they are using both the body and consciousness of the child. And then they assign them jobs and tasks within the factory. So let's talk about some of the experiments. Experiment 1160, I believe the first known success post-prototype, went to Boxy Boo, that weird sort of jack-in-the-box with arms and legs and springs and things. They make him very hungry. They're all hungry. They're all hungry because, I mean, if you are creating little monsters that are specifically designed to be better and stronger than the humans who are in charge of them, you need to have something in order to control them. And they chose hunger. I guess you're the one feeding the monster. The monster can't take out you. And Boxy Boo becomes the preferred method of disposal for employees that ask too many questions. Experiment 1163 was Pianosaurus. Pianosaurus was aggressive and uncoordinated to the point where he couldn't even play his own mouth piano correctly. They didn't give him a task in the factory, and instead he was just assigned for further testing. 1166 went to Yarnaby. Who's ready for this shit to get sad? That terrible doctor, Harley Sawyer, needs a personal security unit on account of how he's the worst person alive. And he finds that security unit in horrifically ruining the life of a child named Quinn Navidson. Quinn is used to create Yarnaby, and Yarnaby, it gets isolated. Sawyer finds potential in this creature if he can make it fully and solely reliant on him, completely loyal to him, the terrible Doctor Man. By the time Yarnaby is finished and Quinn is gone, he behaves more like a dog than a child. The rest of them act sentient. They act like people. Yarnaby does not. He just wants to keep his favorite person safe. His only person. Really, the person who wrote down that he finds the pathetic noises that the creature makes to be amusing. Dr. Harley Sawyer is the worst person ever put to paper, potentially. It's not enough to just turn the child into a weird little yarn monster. You've got to torture him about it, too. How else are you gonna profit? 1170 goes to Huggy Wuggy. Who did they use to create Huggy Wuggy? We don't know. We don't know for most of them, quite frankly. Cases like Quinn are a rarity. An orphan kid, definitely. They grabbed a child and they put him into a 12-foot tall, fuzzy blue monster body and assigned them with general security detail. You can't give every employee their own personal security. We retain that right for the worst of them exclusively. They did also make a kissy-missy experiment, Bigger Body, but I don't have a child name or an experiment number to give you for her. And I don't know what her job was, but it probably wasn't security, because that's not a girl job. And she's pink. They also make 8 Miss Delights to teach the children in the school. They're all identical. They call them sisters. And boy, doesn't it feel mean to use and mutilate children to create protectors and guides for the other children that they're not doing it to. But they do just keep doing that. They keep doing that. The Miss Delights are also extra upsetting to me because it's not only this loss of self for these kids in the sense of it's not your body that you're used to anymore. There's also 7 identical ones. Nobody can even tell you apart. You lose your current identity and you don't really get a new one? That's awful. 1188 goes to Catnap. Oh, Catnap. Oh, Catnap. Theodore Graham Bell. Not Alexander Graham Bell, the way my brain keeps trying to say instead. His name's Theodore. Theodore Graham Bell was a 7-year-old orphan at Playcare with an imaginary friend. His imaginary friend had a spindly, skeletal robotic hand and spidery robotic legs. And his imaginary friend convinced him to steal an extendo hand backpack so that they could work together and escape Playcare. Theodore didn't have a huge reason to want to escape, except that his imaginary friend wanted it very, very, very badly. And they needed 2 people in order to do it, to get out of the specific door that they needed to get out of to leave the factory. I don't know. This factory is set up with dream logic. Theodore Graham Bell did steal the extendo hand backpack, but he was a real 7-year-old about it, and he misused the electrical charge attachment hand and electrocuted himself. He did manage to get the door opened that his imaginary friend wanted opened, but the prototype, yes, the imaginary friend is the prototype, I know, surprise, the prototype did not leave through the now available exit. He instead took the not dead child to the scientists so that they could save him. Theodore needed a lot of medical attention, but he did keep kicking. After he was healed, he kept acting out and being a real problem. So they turned him into a big, spooky purple cat monster. Catnap. They gave Theodore, or Catnap, the specific task of monitoring Playcare and putting the other children to sleep at night with the red smoke, making sure that no one else could ever attempt an escape as punishment for his attempted escape. But Catnap never stopped hanging out with his imaginary friend and was always following at the prototype's heels to a point that quickly evolved into a sort of religious fervor. 7 years old. Christ! Whether or not the prototype making the choice to save Theodore over escaping was an altruistic choice is still up for interpretation. It could have been that he really felt bad and cared about this kid and wanted him to be safe and alive, or it could have been some sort of 5-dimensional chess move, depending on your personal interpretation of the prototype. I like to think that he just felt really bad about that kid, and he didn't want him hurt. Experiment 1199 was a brawn, and this one wasn't an orphan child. Thomas Clark was an employee of Playtime Co. He had a terminal illness, and he volunteered for the Bigger Bodies Initiative, making him probably the only case of full and informed consent in this entire experimentation process. Not that that saved him in the end, because once he was fully brawn, the other experiments realized there was an employee in that one. And they don't like employees very much. He was savagely attacked. Experiment 1222 goes to Mommy Longlegs. Marie Payne was a little orphan girl who was racked with nightmares and paranoia after an adverse reaction to the red smoke they were all constantly being dosed with. She was bullied, she was unhappy, and they turned her into a big, pink, long-limbed monster woman whose job it was to run the game station to test the other children to determine if they were worth experimenting on. Mommy Longlegs was a very motherly presence to the other orphan children, though. She was super sweet. She really cared about them. She was not very sweet to grown-ups. Again, they're not fans of the employees. And I don't blame them. Experiment 1322 goes to Doughy the Dough Man. If using one orphan child to create a big, scary monster employee works out so well, and it clearly does, imagine what would happen if you used 3 orphan children. In one guy, you combine 3 very different children into one guy. Matthew Hallard is a role model amongst the orphans. He's a little bit older. He's a teenager. He's a very kind boy with a really comforting presence. He is a favorite of the scientists and the caregivers to the point where they were genuinely wondering if it was a waste to use him on an experiment. And yet, Kevin Barnes was an angry and aggressive child. He acted out a lot, not a good instinct for pro-social interaction, physically violent. This is a fun combo, the two of them. Let's squish them into the same guy. And then there's Jack Ayers. Jack was not an orphan. He actually had loving parents, 2 of them even, who happily took him on a tour of the Playtime Co. factory. Yes, the company that is manufacturing knockout gas red smoke and creating big, giant security monsters is still having public tours of the inside of its factory. And they suck, apparently, as well, because Jack falls into a vat of very bad chemicals. Full Harley Quinn. And then they just absorb him into the Doughy experiment. After Matthew, Kevin, and Jack are all become Doughy, someone at Playtime Co. invites Jack's parents to come see him. They say, your child that you thought was dead isn't dead, and you could come talk to him. So of course they come, and they do not leave. Doughy freaks out on him because Jack doesn't recognize him right away. Kevin gets paranoid, and it gets violent. He doesn't mean it. And that is probably the intended outcome of inviting Jack's parents, because what you don't want are a couple of people running around talking about how their kid got eaten by chemicals at your toy factory. It's not good for the reputation. It's not good for the fact that you're apparently already running on such slim profit margins that you couldn't handle a single lawsuit, and instead decided to go down the path of intense biology and neuroscience to create 12-foot tall monsters. Yeah, you can't have those 2 random middle-aged Midwesterners going around spreading truths. Experiment 1354. It's the doctor. Harley Sawyer gets what's coming to him. That's right. Man gets his karma. This man sucked so bad. Literally nobody liked him. He was mean to every single one of his coworkers. He tortured Yarnaby for fun. He taunts and prods at the prototype that he created and started this all off with. He gets an employee eaten by Boxy Boo. It's Laith Pierre who orders Sawyer turned into an experiment. Laith Pierre also sucks. For sure. Also super sucks. I just don't have any record of him personally finding amusement torturing children. So I gotta rank Sawyer below him. Sawyer keeps fucking things up. He's being really mean and awful in ways that are detrimental to the company's goals instead of being mean and awful in ways that progress science and what they're going for. So they gotta get rid of him. But they don't make him into a toy, and they make him into a bigger body. They don't need him to be in a body. They don't need him to be changed. They don't need him traumatized. They don't need his brain broken or absorbed into other brains. They need his brain. So they basically make him into a brain in a jar, except he's a brain in a factory. They hook him into the factory controls, and they keep him alive so he can answer all their questions and still be of use to them. It's super fucked up, and he deserved way worse. He does have reserve bodies he can use. They're like just spindly little robot bodies with TV heads. But for the most part, brain in a jar. Experiment 1395 was Bunzo Bunny. He was a kid named Danny. We don't know anything else about him. Honestly, I wanted to bring him up because I think Bunzo Bunny might be the most humiliating thing to wake up as. I think it's the party hat. Like, okay, you just turned me into a half-organic, mostly alive creature against my will and without my knowledge. And you also put me into a little party hat about it? Absolutely not. 1398 was PJ Pugapillar. Cannot believe they made a giant one of these. It's the worst thing they ever did. They made somebody look like that. Maximum security prison required. So there's some unhappy feelings about all of this. There's a few employee deaths. Catnap gets 6 at once at one point. There's some brief escapes. Huggy Wuggy ends up loose in the woods for a little bit before he's retrieved. And I believe there's 11 casualties in that process. In particular, the prototype is very upset with Playtime Co. and all of its movers and shakers. And he hatches himself up a plan. They call it the Hour of Joy. In the middle of the day, on a beautiful day in August of 1995, the experiments turn on Playtime Co. And it's a full-on massacre. Poppy doesn't participate as far as we know. She did know about it in advance, even though in the future she lies about that. She did know about it, but she chooses to not partake. But everybody else is just eating guys, taking them down. Every employee, every civilian just there on a tour, everyone, whether they knew about the Bigger Bodies Initiative and the human experimentation or not. There were very few survivors, but one of them was Laith Pierre, head of innovation, big man in charge, huge proponent of the Bigger Bodies Initiative. Gang, not to critique your massacre planning, but we should have gone for that guy first. We should have started at Laith Pierre and then done the widespread violence afterwards. The prototype coordinated all of this alongside the doctor, Harley Sawyer, even though there's obviously some tension there, given that the doctor's the one made the prototype like this, and if the doctor's not useful enough to the prototype, he will have all of his little minions strip the doctor for parts and eat him. Keep your enemies close and whatnot. I guess it's better to team up with a fellow scorned experiment than it is to insist on hating the guy that turned you into an abomination forever. No, you should still hate that guy, actually. Strip him for parts. The experiments gather up all the corpses to eat over time and keep themselves fed, though that stash is supplemented by the specialists that Laith Pierre starts sending in to try and extract samples and specimens. Eventually, Laith does give up on that mish. It's not going well. And the toys stop getting any sort of fresh meat delivered at all. Instead, they begin slowly starving, and many of them fall into religious fanaticism, with the prototype at the center. That is their God. That's their Messiah, their guiding light. The ones who don't get on board with that get the short end of the stick. They end up hiding out in remote areas of the factory. Poppy gets locked into a cabinet for years because she won't get on board with what the prototype wanted. It's not a good time. Not a good time. The Hour of Joy was in 1995, and in 2005, enter the Player. Things we know about the Player. They used to work here, but Harley Sawyer doesn't and wouldn't recognize them, so they weren't super important. It's not Eddie Ritterman, it's not Stella Graber, it's not somebody who was the head of any departments. But the Player did have some knowledge of the experimentation that was happening and did feel some guilt in the following years about that. Player received some sort of letter in the mail that led them to investigate this building where everybody died 10 years ago. We're still here, it said, and find the flower. Who sent it? You don't know. The Player doesn't know. We don't know. But I have my theories. The player also was not present, presumably, during the hour of joy, and in fact, many of the experiments that you meet in the games ask straight up how you're alive. How'd you do that? This is the games. Now, this is where the games pick up timeline-wise. The 4 games that have come out so far take place over 2 days max. This guy walks into the factory and just immediately starts having the worst hour of his life. And then every consecutive hour is worse. So now I'm going to speed through the events of 4 video games. Ready? Here we go. The player shows up to the factory, has a run-in with security, and frees Poppy from that case that she was in for years and years and years. That's the entirety of the first game, by the way. It's pretty short. Huggy Wuggy does not die at the end of that game, but is pretty badly injured and sort of sent down an abyss to be dealt with at a later time. Poppy's got some big plans to get out of this place. She's gonna get you on a special little train that she knows the codes to operate, and she's gonna get you to safety. But she's nabbed by Mommy Longlegs, who insists on making the player do all the games at the game station to earn the code to get out of here piece by piece. She's not actually intending on ever letting the player leave alive. She rigs the games. The player has to cheat to win red light, green light, because she doesn't want you to live. Mommy Longlegs, not a fan of current or former employees of Playtime Co. The player does absolutely crush musical memory and whack-a-wuggy at the game station, though, because you have to in order to progress the plot of the game. But you cheated! You cheated at red light, green light! And by the way, oh my god, the red light, green light is... I'm gonna slow down here to explain the red light, green light to you. Red light, green light. You can only move when the lights turn off and the music plays. But then when the lights turn on and the music stops, you have to freeze. And the whole time you are being pursued by a very slow PJ Pugapillar, and you can hear his so many little legs. Anyway, you cheat and you don't get eaten by PJ Pugapillar, and Mommy Longlegs freaks out and chases you around, but ends up getting crushed in a machine. Her body gets all squooshed down, and she dies, and you watch it happen. And then a skeletal, spindly metal hand sneaks underneath a door and snatches her body away. It's the prototype, who is almost certainly, grafting the other experiments onto himself. Ew. You get on the train with Poppy, right? You've got the code. You're gonna get out of there. But instead, this little doll calls you perfect because you did so good at those games at the game station. So she reroutes the train and crashes it. She's changed her mind about letting you out. She wants your help to take out the prototype. Oh, also Bunzo Bunny dies. Mommy Longlegs kills and presumably eats him. They're all eating each other on account of the starving. So now you've been in a train crash. You've run for your life minimum of twice. You've been forced to play these rigged games for children. You're in a train crash. And then Catnap, big giant purple cat monster, picks you up and throws you into a trash compactor. You escape that, you manage, you traverse through some tunnels, and you end up with a new friend who lives in a phone. His name is Ollie. He's just a little guy, and he's got so many ideas about what to do, and where to go, and how to help. So you end up taking instructions from Ollie about your next steps, wandering about Playcare, getting red smoked and hallucinating. We're into the 3rd game now. I feel like a lot of the 3rd game is just excuses to show you nightmare versions of the experiments of the toys. You can see a Huggy Wuggy with needle teeth and a big distorted face. You have to kill the last remaining Miss Delight, who ate all her sisters in the school. And you also find a half-alive Dog Day. Just the torso. Just the upper half. He's the last smiling critter left alive that isn't Catnap, because Catnap has been taking out all the heretics. And so he's got Dog Day half put together, strung up from the ceiling. And then you watch him get eaten alive by tiny versions of the smiling critters, who then get inside of his body and puppet him around to once again chase you as you run for your life. Just constantly in hell. There's no breaks. And then you get stalked and pursued by Catnap for a long time in what's maybe the worst final fight I've ever seen in a video. I can't even watch people play it. I didn't mean to show up and just start insulting the video game, but I cannot believe that they structured it the way that they did at the end. Anyway, then you electrocute Catnap nearly to death, but he doesn't die from getting electrocuted. And I do just want to point out, really quick, that that's what happened to the 7-year-old child before he was Catnap as well. You're making him go through that again. He has to get electrocuted again. And not die from it again? But okay, he doesn't die from getting electrocuted big style. No. Instead, the hand of the prototype, his savior, his imaginary friend, his everything, the creature who, the last time this nearly exact same thing happened to him, picked him up and scooped him off to safety, that hand descends from the ceiling towards him, and the child inside of Catnap looks up and offers himself to his god. And he gets killed by the prototype, just smooshing his hand through that giant open maw and snatching his body away. That's fucked up. That's crazy. I love that. The whole fight that precedes it is so stupid and tedious and weird. And then they end it with something like that. Ooh. When things are almost good, that's what gets me. When things are like almost good. Also, it seems like the children who are turned into these experiments are aging mentally while they're in there. When we hear their voices, also, their voices sound like grown-ups. They don't talk like kids. Dog Day talks about heretics and things. That's not something that children say. So there is evidence that they are aging and developing inside of these creatures as much as they can, right? They're not in a, I wouldn't say a positive environment that facilitates such growth. But I bring this up to say that Theodore is 22 at this point. He spent ages 7 to 22 as a smoke-filled cat monster worshipping his Lord and Savior made flesh. Made metal. This whole thing is just an excuse for me to get really emotional about Catnap and Doughy at the end of the day. All right, so you watched that child get murdered and snatched, and then Poppy finds you, and now she's got a big friend to carry her around because she's only like 2 apples tall and her legs are so little. It's Kissy Missy! You and Poppy take an elevator while Kissy stays up to operate said elevator, but while you're descending, Kissy Missy gets attacked. Who attacked her? We don't know. Now we're on to game number 4. Poppy goes back to help her big friend, leaving you to traverse the prison alone. Yes, the prison in the toy factory, where they kept the experiments that were half done or behaving badly. Like when Catnap killed 6 dudes, they had to put him somewhere until he learned to behave himself, I guess. At this point, and only at this point, the doctor has realized that you are there. I'm sorry, I thought you were hooked into the whole factory. You've just now realized, I've run for my life 6 times. But okay, the doctor has realized that you're here, and he starts causing problems, including sending Yarnaby after you. I love Yarnaby! Also, the doctor says something that alludes to the fact that he's the one that made the train crash. Suspicious. Pretty sure that was Poppy. You are saved from both Yarnaby and Pianosaurus by Doughy. He distracts Yarnaby and beats Pianosaurus to death and eats him. Doughy also likes Yarnaby, I think. He's got a favorite. At least. Only one of them's not getting digested. Doughy takes you and Poppy and Kissy Missy to Safe Haven, a remote little area where some toys are still hiding out from the prototype. Hey, can I just say, I am desperate to know where all the human orphans ended up, actually. Because they're not here. They're not in the safe haven. And Poppy has lines alluding to the fact that you can save the children. First off, it's been 10 years, and there's no food here. I know there's no food here because you're all eating each other. So they wouldn't be children anymore, most of them. They would be starving. Do you have them in some sort of stasis? If you do, why are they not in the place labeled safe haven? If they're being protected by the prototype, why are we so mad at the prototype? Poppy's got a plan. Her plan is to use the red smoke and a bunch of explosive charges to bring down the entire Playtime Co factory and kill everyone inside, her and her friends included. Though he doesn't love that, as a plan, he's sort of the leader of a ragtag team of tortured children and doesn't actually want them to die. He actually had many opportunities to escape the factory in the past 10 years. His soft, doughy body can split apart and squish through tiny spaces. He could have left the building safely, but he stayed for his kids. So he's not stoked at the idea of doing a big Pyrrhic victory. Also, no one has seen Poppy in years because she was locked in that case, so they don't super trust her. And quite frankly, I don't know why the player seems to trust her either. She crashed that train. The doctor can admit to whatever he wants. Girlie crashed that train. She called me perfect and then crashed a train. The player runs off with Doughy to get parts to fix up Safe Haven's generator so that the haven stays safe. It's the only place that is safe because it has this separate generator that the doctor doesn't have access to. But if the generator dies, then all the security goes away and the prototype's gonna get in. And in the process of finding parts, you end up chased by Yarnaby again, who then, at the end of that chase, ends up dangling from the end of a chain over a pit of lava and set on fire. It's harder to defend this man every day. But I know he's got to be so tired by this point. So Yarnaby's dead. Pianosaurus is dead. The doctor does a lot of taunting, asking why the player is really here. Because surely it wasn't just that you got a mysterious letter. Like, did you lose someone you loved in the hour of joy? Did you have some other connection to this place? It's a valid question that we don't answer. And he also asks if we've considered the ways that Poppy seems to be using us, which is, again, a really good thing to bring up. It's a good question. And then the player kills the doctor as well. It sucks and it's really hard. But we manage. The doctor dies, insisting that we aren't saving anyone. But he did have a special extendo hand attachment called the Omni Hand, and it can do anything that any of the other hands can do, plus more. So that'll be good to have in the future. While everyone was distracted finding parts to fix up this generator, the prototype explodes Safe Haven because he knew everybody's plans all along, because he was Ollie on the telephone the whole time. He mimics. The thing with the prototype is he mimics voices, so he could sound like just a little guy. Doughy freaks out on the player because all of his friends are dead, and it's your fault, potentially, or it's Poppy's fault, or it's your fault, actually, because you brought the prototype here. Somebody did, and he needs somebody to blame. So you're running for your life. Again. Doughy ends up dead, squooshed, and monologuing for actually a really long time for a guy that's dying about how he's really sorry. He's really sorry. Poppy then abandons you after accusing you of killing Doughy. Ma'am, you're the reason he was chasing me. We can both take blame for this. The prototype threatens to lock her back in that case she was locked in for 10 years, and she freaks out and leaves. Fully leaves you behind. So now it's just you and Kissy Missy, who doesn't even talk. She's just this sort of silent, friendly, lumbering presence. And then you fall down a hole. You're always falling down hole. You fell in a trash compactor a little bit ago. Now you're falling down a hole. Kissy Missy grabs your hand to try and save you, and then her arm rips off of her body, and now you're just falling down a hole, just you and a disembodied arm. You get down there, look through a little window, and who's on the other side? The world's angriest and injuredest Huggy Wuggy. And that's the story so far. That's 4 games worth of story. The 5th one will be probably January of next year, presumably the last one. And I guess it's going to start with you once again running for your life from this same blue bitch. And if that game doesn't reveal that Elliot Ludwig is the prototype, it will be wrong. It will not be canon to me. I'm so sorry. It's the only thing that makes sense. It's the only thing that makes sense. Ludwig is the prototype. He is. Harley Sawyer killed him, scorned former employee, killed him, turned him into the prototype to use him as the way to get back into the company and do this terrible, terrible initiative. They have a crazy, weird relationship between the two of them. Doesn't matter anymore now because the doctor's dead. The prototype is very invested in Poppy being on his side because she's his daughter. I believe this. I believe this wholeheartedly. He wants revenge on any remaining Playtime Co. employees. He wants to, I think, liberate the factory, get everybody out of there so they can go eat. I just don't see another way to explain it. Also, Poppy's a weird little traitor, and I know this in my bones. You could also say she's a very scared, hurt little kid, but she was like 30, first off, I think. She must have been. And yes, obviously you can still be sad and hurt and traumatized at 30. Yes, obviously. Yes. I just think she's working with the prototype. That's all. That's what I think. I think they were working together the whole time. Maybe I'm wrong. The whole thing is just such kid horror. There's nothing better than goofball child-centric horror. This is perfect distilled horror for babies. Like, it's no wonder that all of my 6-year-olds a few years ago loved it so much. The character designs alone would take the prize. The colors, the sound, the music, much less the insanely over-the-top lore. Kids love stories about orphans in bad situations. I can't explain it. They just do. Like, I can just imagine the 6-year-old on the road trip, right? And then the prototype scooped him up and brought him to the scientist, and the scientist turned him into catnap. And then that's okay. If you've ever had a kid tell you a story. And then Yarnaby got tortured by the doctor until he acted just like a dog instead of a kid because he was so hurt and it was so sad. And then the parents are up at the front being like, okay, so I thought it was just like a video game about toys. I wasn't really ready for the human experimentation angle that I'm learning about right now. Do I need to figure out what Bendy and the Ink Machine is now? Are there orphans in that one? I don't know where else to go with horror for babies. It was FNAF, Poppy, Bendy, fucking Bend Round, SCPs? The whiteboard hungers for nonsense, and it will be fed. Thank you so much for joining me for Poppy Playtime Lore. Did I get some things wrong? Yeah, probably, but did you learn something? I hope so. It was the gist of it at the very least. Feel free to correct me in the comments. As I said, I know you want to, unless it's about my opinions or the way I pronounce words, because those are all empirically correct. And I won't hear otherwise. Once again, if you want to support me and my words and my ramblings, you can! You can buy my book! It's called Before the Tavern, 100 Character Concepts for Tabletop Role-Playing Games by Haley Whipjack, Amelia Som, and Gus Rachels. That's me and my friends as well. And it does, in fact, have 100 character concepts for tabletop role-playing games. And you can get it anywhere you get books. You can also support my Patreon. I love my patrons, and I especially love the way that all of them conduct their scientific experiments ethically and with care and discretion. Patrons such as Alcyon Hero, Annie G, Autumn Vector, Blar, Dihar, Britty, Chatty C, Gwynrick, Joshua Caliendo, Catherine, Kazran, Rue, Steph Delacour, Vesper Sinclair, ZC, Resackery Fly, Zebulon, T, Abalab, Abyssal Feast, Addie, Aiden Cassis, The Stronger Aiden So Wood, Notoriously Low Roller, Amy E, AJ Holian, Akadaroku, Albandi Gyoza, Alicia Bateman, Ali XX, Alice Sneck, Alex, Elsa Dragon, Alyssa Pearl, Amalia, Amanda Nicole, Ams, Anamoni, Anastasia, Anja, Anna Elise, Anna Rosenloff. And Anthony Brantley, Annie Teller, Aoife, Archie Archer Tang, Argentum Inc., Ariana Collier, Ari H., Artemis Nix, Ashley Figura, Audrey Mouse, Avocado, Avery Little, Exerces, Aziz, Azula's Tail, Azure, Babbity Kate, Bada Kid, Bailey Wind, Barto Hawk 764, Ba Jax, Beanie Boy Rufus, Beard Acknowledge, Becca B, Beck, Bed Knobs and Bookshelves, B, Ben Sweeney, Bethany Draws Art, Bisexual Maelstrom, Blake Douglas, Blake Stewart, Bobby Banner, Bummy Lee, Boop, Box of Cherubs, Brian Rouleau, Bridget Quinlivan, Brianna Budwalker, Burning Box, Burnt Toast, Caleb, Cam Achoo, Cammy, Captain Leppy, Captain Twizzler, Carly Hartle, Caroline Odin, Cass Rogers, Cass Carter, Cat in a Skin Suit, Catherine Mullen, Celadon, Celt Code, Cerulia, Chaotic Kiwi, Chelsea Souter, Cherubel Hart, Cheryl Fitzgerald, Chronic Escapee, Celio 10, Claire Online, Cland, Clara Oswald Fan 23, Clemens Lime, Clever Name, Cleo Says Hi Hannah, Connor Robinson, Connor Virgilius Murphy, Corey Bennett, Cornhorn, Corey Pup, Corey Cat, Courtney P, Kuste, Christy, Crow Mori, Daisy B, Dakota Lewansky, Damian Miller, Dan, Danny B, Danny Sprague, Daniel Tefke, Danny, Daranax, Don Curia, Decayed Robot in a Green Field, Declan Roof, Deals, Delaney, Devin Ellert, Devin Meskill, Digimaniac 33, Ditto, Drac Red, Drake, Eli Holland, Eli X, Elysium, M, Embers, Emma B, Emma S, Emma Tamplin, Emma Thomas, Emmy, and Beyond We, Ender Art, and Gessa, Erica, Aaron Rumsey, Eskel, Ethan Figgins, Evan Kinsella, Evan Linden, Evil Scrump, Ezra Conroy, Faye Leviathan, Far Out Wonder, Fletcher Sanderson, Florence Tarnas, Foolery with Nori, Fox Funky, Elvis Monkey, Finch R, Gabriel Lairbag, Gayham, Geominius, Giant, Gil the Gilded Dragon, Godzilla Food, Good Soft Gay, Gracie No-Nos, Grey Hawk, Green Walker, Gregory Wise, Gray Does Things, and Stuff, Grimbus, Gungilf, Guthix, Hale, Haley Walker, Hannah Anderson, Hannah E, Hannah Jeffrey, Harley, Harper Hex, Haven 2010, Head Full of Birds, Heliotrope Fox, Henry, Hey, it's Jay, Hey, Meg's here, Holly May, Houston Littlejohn, I Ship Genfix, I Will Sing No Requiem, I Dizzle 22, Infinity Girl, Isby, Izzy Valderrama, It's Not Always About the Money, Spider-Man, It's a Secret, Izzy Alexander, JV, Jaman02, Jackie, James Summers, Jamie, Jarn of Yore, Jared Booth, Jasmine, Jax on the Box, Jay Ocha, Jane, Jeff, Jenny Waboom, Jericho, Jester of the Rat Court, Jet, John Ego, G Dem, Joanna Wyrick, Jody Garnish, Joe, Jonah Levin, Jordan, Josephine Ryder, Jubilee, Juliana Backer, Julie Stonky, Justin Madison, Kate, KJ, Keva Conrad, Kat, Kate Lovia, Kathleen, Catherine Hill, Katie Bushman, Katie Larrabee, Kelsey Rodriguez, Kenny, Kirby.jpg, Keverlyn C, King Cozy, King Panda, Kitty Large Paws, Chrissy D. Hass, Kyle Richardson, Lady Jessica, Lady of Autumn, Lauren and Daisy, Lawson, Lee Z's, Legos Jedi, Lemon, Leo the Sunray, Lexi Scott, Liam Fahey, Libby, Lillian Carter, Lily Belvedere, Lily, Lisa Spitalowitz, Liv, Lizzie Gale, Logan, Lou, Is a Shoe, Lucas, Lucy Schneider, Luca M, Leona Braxton, Madeline Anna Harkness, Madeline Gentry, Maya Faranas, Manny S, Manuel Muller, Marianne, Marie Isabel, Marie, Martha, Mary Mac, Mary R, Matt Dam, Matt Mobes, Max Mormon, Matt Roth, Meatball Cat, Meg, Micah, Michael Francis, Michael West, Midnight Rose, $1 Million Cheese Wheel, Mindless Nonsense, Minnie's Mayhem, Mira 9404, Mitchum Ditchum, MLD Irish 14, Mo Spooky, Molly Early, Molly McDade, Moon Noodles, Moonlore, Morgan Potter, Moss Rose, Moth, Mr. Top Hatter, Murph Wazir, Nadia Desiree, Nick the Brick, Non-Existent Mountains Theory, Non-Toxic Ivy, Nora H, Nick Snacks of Faye, OKW, Alethea, Oliver Ryburn, Ollie D, Ami Gracie, Onyx Claw the Archdruid, Opossum, Oren T, Oski the Bard, Owen Klein, Paige, Papa Midnight, Paper, Parker, Petal Stripe, Pete Alexander, Philip Dameron, Fix, Phoenix, Piper Porter, Pluto, Pobledo, Poetic Cinema, Poorly, Fleshed Skeleton, Praise God Oyadel, Prettiest Bearded Lady, Quintanamo Bay, Razel Burst in Frame, Rat Scratch, Reed Brody, Ren, Ricky, Roman Landslide, Rookie Baby, Rosemary Finch, Rowan C, Rowan Rose, Royal Reboot, Rat King, Ryan Hlavakek, Sagely Sapphic, Salamence, Sam, Samantha Althol, Samantha Fisher, Samara Kingston, Samson, Sarah Ann, Sarah Hardman, Sarah Pritchard, Sarah Sunshine, Scam Likely, Scariest Bird, Sea Bass of the Sea, Sean Ryland, Side Store, Simon Says, Simran, Site 42, Sky McQuinley, Skylar Grayson, Slime, NB, Solo Dolo, Sophia, Space Battery, Spartan Warrior, Spapple, Spooky Noodle, Spoon of the Universe, SSC, Steen, Stephen Gibson, Stevie U, Sudini, Sunbell, Sunny Solstice, Supercalifragilisticexponential Crisis, Severe E, Sydney, Silas SS, Taylor Burke. T, Tex the Gentle Giant, the Luciest Fruit, the Plum Satyr, the Sheriff, the Wizard C, the Wizard Sober, the Kestrel, Theodore Lawrence, Thomas Guzzo, Tiffany V, Tim, TJ Dash, Toby Springer, Tommy Castronova, Tommy Peterson, Trin, Lise Anderson, Trizadale, Unusual Willie, Useless Lesbian, Val Hallen, Vanessa Johnson, Vanilla Zunker, Victoria Fay. Via name, V Sharp, Vunks, Walker Grant, West Will Turner, Woody Daniel, Ren Cracknell, Showtime, Yes Chef, Yizne, Ngveleo, Zachary Mayman, Zane, and Zephlordicus. Thank you so much to all of these folks and every other name you saw scrolling past. It's an absolute delight to have you here. This video took me recording it 3 times all the way through before I finally got a version that didn't break terribly after I was done. See you on the next one! I really hope it is a constant that children like stories about orphans and bad situations, because if I get a bunch of comments about how no one else thinks that's true, I'm going to freak out and have a lot of questions for my siblings and myself and the children I've taught at various summer camps.